So our first presenter is really a friend of mine for quite a long time, and it's the Naughty Man, if anybody's ever heard of the Naughty Man. But I'll tell you what he did today. For those of you that know, I've released some weight over time, and I can't wear my rings anymore. And I talked to the man, and he said, well, here, let me make something. So he did. He brought mine today, which is kind of cool. And I said, so what's the significance of this? And he said, well, if I do it right, you can't tell the end or the beginning. I thought that's kind of profound for first thing in the morning, right? That's kind of profound. So let's give our first presenter, Mark, a hand, the Naughty Man.
My name is Mark. Do I really have to use this? Yes. All right. My name is Mark Barsocchino, and I am a recovering IT project manager. I knew that was a field to get out of when I got woken up in the middle of the night with an email notification in a dream. And I rolled over and grabbed my phone and went, oh, they didn't email me. And for the next 3 hours, I laid in bed wondering about the project. When I met my wife now, she asked me, what do you do to relax? I said, I tie knots. So I take all that stress and I put it into fiber. And she went, that's really profound. My background is pretty simple. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was in something called Sea Scouts, which is like Boy Scouts but on water. Are there any former Boy Scouts in here? Awesome. So when you guys were out camping, going on 50-mile hikes, going to New Mexico, I was on a 56-foot sailboat, normally with girls. Just so we can compare the notes. But that's what got me introduced to knot tying, is a nautical background and learning how to sail. 20 years later, I moved to Colorado, and I had a son, and he said, I want to join Cub Scouts. Now, the only similarities between Cub Scouts and Sea Scouts is the second word, Scouts. Everything else is completely different. And one night they said, we need someone next week to teach these boys knots. Does anybody know knots? And the little Sea Scout in me said, dude, you know knots? Put your hand up. I said, okay, I'll teach them knots. And I started playing with it. This is back early 2000s, right when that parachute cord craze was starting. And when I say that, the parachute cord craze was black, green, white, and you were really excited if there was red and blue. That was it. And I just started tying stuff. I gave myself a gift one year of a book that you can see over here. It's called the Ashley's Book of Knots. It's the Knot Tying Bible, and I just started taking off. As I started tying knots, there was a project that really kicked it off for me of tie your own cufflinks. Now, gentlemen, if you don't wear cufflinks, that's our fashion accessory. Would you agree, James? That's the one I'm passionate about. And I can tell you all about my cufflink collection on another day. So I sat down and I started tying. There was a project that this guy talked about in one of my books that said, here's how I made my own cufflinks. And I went, wow, that's really cool. And I started playing with that. And then when my grandfather passed, I got his fly fishing line. And I said, I wonder if I could make this project with that medium. And fly fishing line, for anybody who hasn't tied knots regularly, is a pain in the butt to use. It's slippery, because it's supposed to be. It has a little bit of memory, because it's supposed to. But to do what I do with it, we have long, long talks, and I use a lot of sailor language. But I got it to work. And I thought, I could do more of this. So I went to the fly fishing shop, and I said, do you guys have any line that you throw away? And this guy goes in the back and comes out with a box. I went, wow, okay. And I saw products that they had, like a fly fishing lanyard that was made out of steel and buttons, and I was like, why? That's cool, but I can do better. So now I started making cufflinks that kept 6 feet of fly fishing line out of lakes, rivers, and landfills. I started making lanyards that kept 40 feet of line out of lakes, rivers, and landfills. Mark, that's a really niche market. Yes. Then the ladies started coming up to me saying, can you make earrings? And my original intention was, I want to make stuff for guys, because I go to craft shows and guys don't have anything to look at. But more people saying, I was at one show, I had a dozen women saying, do you have any earrings? And I'm like, looks like I'm going to go home and learn how to tie earrings. Now I have 4 different styles of earrings, because I just took the sailor knowledge that I had, the decorative knot tying knowledge that I had, and applied it to something different. Christmas 2 years ago, a gentleman was restringing a guitar at a party we were at, and pulled off the string and threw it to me. He said, you can tie knots, tie something out of that string. 15 minutes later, I gave him the knot that Bob's wearing right now. And he just looked at me going, are you magic? What did that, what? I also make stuff out of climbing rope. I'm not here to pitch you, but it's how I got from where I was to where I am. I took a passion, and I started to fuel that passion while I was working in computers. And as a project manager, you sit on lots of conference calls. So I could tie knots on conference calls, because normally I'm not paying attention because it doesn't have anything to do with me. So my hope is that that passion can continue to fuel me and those around me. And that's why I'm naughty today.
All right, so we don't have a second mic. So questions from the audience, you're going to have to stand up and say it loud. What questions do you have for this great game?
Where can we look at your earrings?
You can look at my earrings right here now. You can.
You're not wearing it.
No, I know. That's the Mr. Clean look that I gave up. Oh, are you?
I want to wear your earrings when I fight you.
I have them right here with you. You can go to Eclectic, or you can go to CS Knotworks, which is CentennialStateKnotworks.com, and I can hook you up there. I have lots of them. And they're right up here. By the way, real quick, I've got a table right here, and because Sam said bring your stuff so people can see it. My stuff is meant to be touched and experienced, so you can make a connection with it. So when we get done, because I don't want to interrupt whatever we're doing for the second half, come up and touch this stuff. Ask me questions, comments, give me any jokes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Sir.
Mark, we've seen your knots before, and it seems like you progressed in your knot worthiness. So from the last time that you connected with us, so tell us, give us a little update on the journey since we've seen you last time, where you're going, and where are you placing knots in stores, or just how you distribute now?
I'm prominently displayed at the Men's Exchange for those gentlemen who want to buy cufflinks. James Proby is constantly supporting local business. I've expanded to a couple of different things. There's a woman in Oklahoma City who is building a hotel. Her interior designer found a gentleman from Croatia in one of my knot tying groups on Facebook. He posted it to our group saying, I can't really get to Oklahoma City. Does anybody want to talk to this lady? They want 2 9 foot by 14 foot rope netted walls. So I went out to Oklahoma City on my way to Louisville for, and yes, this is a thing, for the International Guild of Knot Tiers annual meeting. We're a small group, but we're tightly knot. Not tightly knit, because that's a whole different thing. But, so I stopped off in Oklahoma City and met with them and talked to them and showed them what I had in mind and put together a mock-up, and they're really excited. So to answer your question, Frank, you know, I do this side of things to connect with people, to talk to folks. I go to craft shows and farmers markets, and just because that's what I'm passionate about. And if you can't tell, then you haven't had enough to drink today. But to make ends meet, well, my goal is I'd love to be doing interior design pieces. One of my newest pieces was an accident. I just decided to do something for Valentine's Day. And then before I took it apart, I went, you know, So I went to a friend of mine who does woodworking, and I partnered with him. He made the box, I tied it in here, and all of a sudden I'm like, I have a new product line that I can hang up on a wall and be a conversation piece. To answer your other question, Frank, I have a book over here that's got 7,200 illustrations and 3,600 knots. I'm not done. I've got a lot. There's always something more I can learn. And that's the other thing. If you have something that, if you have a project in mind, can you do a bottle stopper? Yes, and that's why I started making bottle stoppers. Can you make earrings? I guess I can, because they're there. So, curiosity about this is what drives me, but also people's curiosity of, and my favorite line is, can you tie? Yes. Now, should I is a whole different conversation. But can you? Yes, I can.
2 questions. What's your favorite thing that you've ever tied, and what's the most difficult thing that you've ever tied?
Thing or not? I love, people ask me, well, honestly, you know, when you talk about that, yes, I have a better way to tie your shoelaces, just in case we're wondering. My favorite knot to tie is a star knot. It's just pretty. It's intricate, and people say that you shouldn't be able to tie it, which I really, really like. I make the earrings and cufflinks out of that. I make a slide for my bag out of that to cinch it down. The most difficult thing I ever tied was my first star knot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People ask me, how do you tie knots? Well, it's a process of over and under, and then over again. And I've learned through this process to be really patient with myself. Because it's really, really easy to get really, really angry and throw it in the fire and walk away. And so what I'll do is I'll start tying it, and I'll say, okay, yeah. And I'll walk away, and I'll find a glass of whiskey, and then I'll come back a day or 2 later and say, okay, let's talk about this again, and figure it out, and start again. Because as a boy, I tried to tackle 3 guys playing rugby. I tried to tackle 3 guys at the same time. And I ended up flat on my back, looking at a nice blue sky, thinking, wow, that's already pretty blue. And then I got up and said, where's the ball? And so giving myself permission to slow down and walk away, and I've got to get this done today.
Yes, sir. So when you're making things, or you get requests for things like earrings and cufflinks, do you look online, or do you look through your knot books to find other knots that might function as such, or do you have to start from scratch? And if so, what's your creative process for coming up with ideas for how to make cufflinks that are functional?
Yes to all of those things.
Okay.
I reach out to my groups online and say, what do you do with this? I look through other people's work, and when I do that, I will actually reach out to them saying, I really like what you did here, and I've had a request for this. Would you mind if? And that's how I came up with the knot box. There's a gentleman in Italy who's got a series of knot box processes. He's not selling them, but it's just knot in a box. And so I shot him a note and saying, hey, I tried this and I really like it. Would you mind? He goes, no, please go ahead. I brought 3 of my books today. My stack of books, if I had them flat, are about this tall. So from a resource standpoint, I can find something. The last question, it comes down to it, I mean, people will just sit down and say, Mark, I need help with this. And I'll sit back. I'll give you a really good example. A friend of mine up in Denver is an amateur archaeologist, Egyptologist. And he and his dad 3D printed the Grand Gallery in one of the pyramids. He said, can you come up? I have some questions about how they did some of this stuff. I said, yeah, sure, I'll come up. And he said, I need to know how the Egyptians moved these 3,000-ton stones from here to here. And so I had to go back, just creatively seeing what the problem was, and what knots, how rope works, what knots they had or would have worked with, and recreated that. And so now I have recreated what the Egyptians did several thousand years ago in miniature for these guys, and it was probably one of the most pleasurable things I've done. Would I be interested in doing horsehair jewelry? Let's see, I work in fly fishing line, guitar strings on a bet, climbing rope because somebody gave it to me, and hemp rope because I like it. I have a friend back here, Mr. Drew Johnson, who I work with Cat 5 because of him. So if it's fibrous and can bend, sure, I wouldn't mind at all. If you and I want to talk later, because other than going out to the horse, I don't know how to get horsehair, we can talk about that. Somebody had, yeah.
So you've already kind of hinted at it with selling your products at craft shows. I'm just curious about kind of the entrepreneurial lifestyle of someone who's in arts and crafts, and kind of how you connect what's passion for you to turning it into a money-making endeavor.
That is a fantastic question. And if you have an answer for that, I'd be happy. No. It's a lot of swings and misses. And what I tell myself is that I remind myself that Wayne Gretzky said that 100% of the shots you don't take don't go in. So my first show was at Palmer Lake. And it was abysmal. It was terrible. People didn't understand my stuff. And what I started figuring out was that that's not my market. There was a whole bunch of stuff, and the way my wife put it very delicately was, see all this stuff here? And I said, yeah. She said, this is Hobby Lobby. I said, okay. She goes, this stuff here where we're standing, this is REI. Two different people different shopping experiences. I said, okay, I get that. My goal is to be a part of the fly fishing show up in Denver that then will travel around the country for the next 3 months. If that's not laser marketed, I don't know what would be. But the struggle is, I remake and reuse pretty much everything that I have. I've got a bag up there that I needed another bag, and I had a pair of Timberline pants that I had worn a hole in. So I made a bag out of the Timberline pants using discarded backer line for a fly fishing, an old leather jacket for the bottom, and hemp rope for the top. I don't know how I came up with the green business. It just happened. And so, you know, there's the green industry, there's the handcrafted industry, there's the fly fishing, there's the rope top, there's the climbing rope, there's the guitar string. I've got a lot of niche markets. And so, not getting married to anything, for me, is really, really important. This next year, my goal is to be at the Hollyberry Festival, the Colorado College Arts and Crafts, and I'd love to get to the Denver Fly Fishing Show, but that's a booth fee of $1,000, so we'll see if that comes up or not.
You mentioned you went to a trade show.
Yeah.
What was that called again?
The Fly Fishing Show?
No, the one that you went to in Omaha or something like that.
Oh, the International Guild of Knot Tires? Yeah, our annual event.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many people go to that?
Okay, quick shameless pitch. I'm glad you asked. Because this October 23rd, 24th, and 25th, we'll be at the Hotel Elegante here. So if you have any interest in attending, or I'll just use the shameless pun. If you have any interest in being naughty, this is a place to come. Typically we get anywhere from 40 to 50 people come from as far away as England and France. They were really, really hesitant to do it in Colorado because the first thing they said was, well, let's do it in Colorado. They're like, there's no water there. And I went, oh, you're right. Because people near water, or people who are away from water, don't tie knots. I forgot. And then I just let the sarcasm hang in the room for a minute. And so I've spoken with a gentleman, and you mentioned horsehair. I've spoken with a gentleman out in Elbert with T3 Weavers. He makes horsehair ropes. We're actually going to go out to his rope walk. That's a thing, a rope walk. And we're going to see how he makes rope. And then we've got several fly fishermen who's going to actually show us knots that they tie on the water and how they make flies. We've got somebody from Mountain Chalet coming out to teach us rope climbing knots. And then a woman named Wendy Chen, who, if you haven't heard about her, you should look her up. She's currently my mentor, unofficially. She quit as a project manager from Apple and started tying a knot a day using Ashley's Book of Knots. She tied 365 knots, and those are now hanging in the headquarters at Google. So I'm really excited to have her come out and talk how she took this passion and made it a business. So I'm going to be leaning on her to come back to your question a lot, because she's coming in October.
Do you teach or are you willing?
The first Wednesday of every month at Carter Payne Building is the unofficial International Guild of Knot Tiers Southern Colorado branch meeting. And I'm there because I know Jeff very well, and there's beer. And what I do, I had done this in 2018. I got a job, got really, really busy, family stuff piled on, so I stopped. I just literally talked to Jeff yesterday. I said, can we start doing that again? He said, absolutely. I'll have a table reserved for you the first Wednesday of every month. You will see this card sitting at my table. If you're wondering, if you don't see this, just look for Santa. And we will talk about advanced knots, easy knots. I don't care if you come up and say, Mark, how do you tie your shoelaces better? Or, Mark, I need to make a mat for my house. We can talk about any of that. So yes, and private personal classes, absolutely. I'm actually talking to the gentleman at Mountain Chalet about teaching how to make mats, 2 different kinds of mats, and make bowls.
Mark, it's been probably a year and a half since the first time you and I had coffee, and I've watched you grow during that time. And
I know. Santa, baby, Santa.
When we talked the first time, your passion for knots was there. It was very clear. But watching you on stage today, your personality combined with your passion is really powerful. I imagine that transformation came with a couple of hills and valleys, probably some books you read, that kind of thing. Marketing is so hard for small business owners. How do you get the word out that you're doing something incredible? What's your lessons learned that you can share with everyone on how to market, how to get your niche out to the world so people can find it?
As you remember, I am terribly shy, withdrawn, and have a hard time talking to people. I talk to everybody. I can put my stuff up. I've tracked it. When I'm at Eclectic, and Eclectic is a co-op that is actually up for one of the Prism Awards as Social Impact of the Year. One of the cool things about that is that I actually had to give them information on how many feet of line and guitar strings I have kept out of Lake River and landfills to help them with that. I've looked at it. When I'm at Eclectic, people buy my earrings because I can help them make a connection with it. When they don't, they walk by and say, oh, that's really cute, and then they keep walking because they don't understand it. And so, to answer your question, I talk to everybody. I have partnered with the Guitar Center here in Colorado Springs. They have a box that says, Naughty Mark, I'm not kidding. And all of their string, they changed their process. Instead of cutting the strings right in the middle when they restring a guitar, now they cut it way at the top so I have more material to work with. And they give me everything. I partnered with Monarch Fly Fishing Lines up in Boulder, Colorado. I met them at the fly fishing show. And they said, oh, you should come down, we'll give you some stuff. I have a Subaru, 2003 Subaru out back. They filled the back of my Subaru and the back seat of my Subaru with line that they were gonna throw away. And they said, we'll see you in a quarter. And I'm like, a quarter of what? Because there is not enough of me to tie all this stuff. But now I can. So to answer your question, in addition to that, I take advantage of any opportunity and I don't say no. Drew said, can you tie something out of Cat 5? Yep, sure can. This young lady wants me to tie something out of horsehair. Okay. Because I like what I do. I'm passionate about it. And I like people, and I like connecting them to it. And if I can bring those things together, folks, I'm running off a 4-hour sleep. Can you imagine me caffeinated and awake? this is what gets me out of bed in the morning, what keeps me going.
So, real quick, first of all, fully concur, Star Knot, really beautiful, fair to tie. Second of all, it sounds like you're not looking to scale your business at all, even though that might seriously increase the amount of flying you can keep out of landfills and things like that. Have you thought at all about scaling your business? And if so, what have you thought?
The idea of scaling my business is scary, just from the standpoint that I take a lot of, I don't want to not tie. I don't want to come off of the front lines. And so if I got to the point where I had to scale it up, I have no idea what that would look like. But what I've learned is I don't say no to an opportunity. So if somebody came to me and said, we need you to make 700 pairs of cufflinks and 1,000 pairs of earrings, okay. And I will reach out to people who, by the way, what was your name? Stephen, you know how to tie a star knot? Fantastic. I want your card in case I need to scale up. You know, both my grandfathers were Marines. And so the adage of adapt and overcome comes to mind. And, you know, can I scale up? Maybe. Do I want to? I don't know. Will I? We'll see. But I'm not going to say no to it.
So before our final question, I've got one for you.
Okay.
You've heard me say a lot, so what? So what's the big deal about fishing line landfills? Why is this such a deal for you?
My grandfather decided that when I was young, he would teach me what camping was. And camping for him was getting on horseback and riding to 10,000 feet in the Sierra Nevadas, and then the guy with the horses left. And I learned how to fly fish. I was 8. I've had line in my hands since then. I kind of got rid of it when I had kids because fly fishing is expensive and so are children. And I have to feed children and I don't have to feed fly fishing. So we're getting back to the idea of me getting line in the water. People are throwing stuff away every day. Some people throw a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into lakes, rivers, and landfills. Plastic bags. And yes, I've thought about making rope out of plastic bags. But this is something that I can use, that I can touch a group of people, anglers, not just men, not fly fishermen, but anglers, and help them keep the water close to them when they're off the water. It was something that I literally fell into, and talking about fishing, when you say fall into something, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I fell out of the boat a little bit. But I can make a difference and have something different for people that has an impact, especially here in Colorado with all the fly fishing we do. When I found out they threw this stuff away, it's got a piece of nylon thread inside, and it's covered with a whole bunch of different mediums, mostly a bendable plastic. That's going to be there long after my kids are gone. And so keeping it out is a really, really good idea, and it makes me feel better. I didn't intend to start a grain company, but here I am.
We'd like to ask our final question. Right back there.
What can we as the Colorado Springs community do for you?
Great question.
I haven't thought about that at all. Shameless plug. See if there's something you like or somebody who would like it and come and buy it. That would be great. More important, I have a lot of friends who are in IT still, and they tell me that they are jealous of me because I have found my thing. So find your thing and just do it.